Oh my God, Michael, you look very refreshed for someone just off the plane, transatlantic wise. What happened to you? Did you get a blood infusion in Germany instead of just hopping around stadiums?
No, no, I should tell you my skincare routine, but I actually just got off the plane, took a shower because I know we were filming this, and that's kind of it. But I'm actually dead tired because my body is 6 hours ahead of time. But you look like you've had a nice holiday weekend. You got a little color there in the face. What'd you go up to? Did you go to the beach?
No beach, upstate. There was a little bit of sunshine for I had only like a day off, so I'm enjoying it. But yeah, it's been a good Labor Day weekend. But at the same time, a little busy for something that I think you and I both know very well.
Yeah, while millions of Americans head back to work today after Labor Day weekend, talking to colleagues about their beach trips, barbecues, and other ways they celebrated the end of summer, Premier League clubs are going to be looking back at their balance sheets as they reminisce and scrutinize their big spending, particularly on Monday's deadline day. It was the end of the transfer window. Premier League clubs spent a record £2.88 billion, topping the previous record of £2.46 billion set in 2023.
Here's what I was thinking about the whole weekend. Like, how did they get to that point? Like, what happened? Like, why so much spending? Liverpool's colors, we should maybe change them from red to green as the reigning league champions made it rain with a club record of 565 million spent in this window. Not only that, but they set the Premier League player transfer record not once, but twice. The Reds set the record in June by signing Florian Wirtz for $156 million from Bayer Leverkusen of the Bundesliga, which you tell us a little bit about it later because you were just there. And the high mark lasted all 3 months as they secured, this time, Swedish striker Alexander Isak from Newcastle for a Premier League record of 176 million fee.
Oh my God. It's funny. A lot of people say game's gone when a star heads to Saudi Arabia for these kinds of numbers, but does the Premier League have a spending problem? Think about this: 9 of the 10 most expensive Premier League transfers have occurred since 2021.
Let's talk about it.
I'm freelance soccer journalist Michael Loray.
And I'm Aslı Pellet from The Athletic. Transfer deadline day has become one of the greatest rituals, I think, of international soccer. And this deadline day has become a spectacle as journalists try to break the news and fans try to figure out who's going to be on their squad next season. This is a big deal, and everybody's after the same information. I think one of the biggest characters that we all know, it's Fabrizio Romano. He has cemented himself as the go source for the player transfers. But I have to shout out to my people here. I think with The Athletic, we do a great job there. We broke a lot of these stories this season.
Shameless plug.
Shameless. But if Christian Pulisic is LeBron James of soccer, I think Romano, we can say, definitely Adam Schefter of soccer. I think Romano and other reporters have built a career and reputation out of these transfer news. And also they just maybe made their life a little more difficult than it is because it's a really tough job to break these stories.
Yeah, 100% right. We see it in the US with Adam Schefter, and then in the NBA, it was Woj, before he left, and Shams now. It's a lot, right? You need to be connected to front office, to agents, to staff members, to janitors, to you name it, right? Hey, oh, so-and-so, I bumped into him in the bathroom. I think he's signing with the club. Like these guys do not sleep. And I think from a fan standpoint, that's the news cycle today, right? It's 24/7. Labor Day, you were supposed to be at the beach hanging out, and you're like, I worked most of the weekend because of this window. And it is so important to European soccer that people hang on their phones as much as these guys trying to break the news. Like, were you following along with Galatasaray at all?
First of all, our biggest transfer was happening months ago with Osimhen. And I think we were on the phone like 24. I was scrolling down and see what was happening. I was also trying to make sure that we were going to get the news before everyone else. So I think in where I sit, I'm looking into the balance sheet as a reporter, how they're doing these transfers. Also, I'm a fan in a way that I'm like, oh, what's going to happen to my team? But one of the biggest questions, at least let's put Galatasaray as an example, you always have to ask yourself, how are they paying for this? Is this good or bad? Like, are we supposed to spend all this money on star players while we can also spend money on youth academy, train and bring the next generation of talent? Because this is not a one-way street. Clubs, they need to have a very strong talent pool, not only because they want to win and they have to like constantly bring new talent to their team, but also those guys, they have a price tag, and that's where the clubs make a lot of money. And that's why I think, we're seeing these huge numbers, especially like you said, this record breaking transfer window season deadline. I mean, like what's happening at Premier League.
Yeah, exactly. It's investing, right? You buy a player or you raise them through your youth academy, and they, score goals or they make saves, and they build up a value, and then you sell them somewhere else, and you take that money and that, that extra money that you got, and invest it in buying another player or doing something else with an academy. So it is this really, it's the Wall Street of global soccer, where you're just buying and selling constantly throughout the window, right? And it's all of the clubs. It's not just the Premier League. It's a lot, especially early on. I know a lot of these leagues are maybe 2 or 3 games in, and we're seeing a lot of significant changes from a roster standpoint. Some of them, it's as a result of performance on the field, right? If you've come out and you've struggled on the field and you haven't scored any goals in 2, 3 games, hey, we need to get a striker. It might not be the number one striker in the world, but you need to bring somebody in to try to score goals. And teams are trying to offload players on loan and all that stuff just to get reps. So it is this very much dog eat dog type situation. And I'm just curious, when is the bubble going to burst? When are we going to get to a point where these numbers are just so inflated that we can't even wrap our heads around it? And teams have, billions and billions or trillions of dollars of wages just because these valuations have gone up so high.
And the other question I think a lot of people ask themselves, especially as journalists, with the American ownership that we discussed in a previous episode, will the American owners eventually try to bring what they know from back home, which is a salary cap? I doubt that would be possible in European soccer, but I bet people are like, I wish we could do that because, well, who wants to like open their, checkbooks and write huge checks over and over again every year and not see results? You mentioned Saudi Arabia, and I remember like in I think it was the 2022 season, and Saudis were, opening their checkbooks and writing huge checks for a lot of superstars. And look at us. We just heard, the number that you shared was 2.88 billion pounds.
It's this race, it's this arms race, right? If you have American billionaires coming in, or you have sovereign wealth funds taking over these clubs and then just injecting dollar after dollar, billion after billion, how can you keep up with that? Not every team can be owned by someone who has unlimited amount of money. So I think that's the biggest thing. You're really going to have this separation of church and state, and like that's where the Super League was, right? It was those
Yeah.
those big clubs, the biggest clubs. They go, we don't need these little guys. We want to do our own thing because we know fans are going to come and watch us, and now we can get more money out of it, and we can reap those benefits, not as much as UEFA and some of the other stakeholders. But the fans were so against it, right? They were like, how dare you? You've already raised season ticket prices and concessions and all these things. And they were like, oh, no, 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 we were just kidding, we're just kidding. In the Bundesliga, they have the 50+1 ownership rule, and those fans, particularly like Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund, they said, no way is this going to happen, right? They have some of the lowest ticket prices in the world, and you think they were
Mm-hmm.
going to let their clubs go to this privatized, league against Real
No.
Madrid and Liverpool? Hell no. So I think we need to, before we bring up that conversation again, there needs to be some leveling out of it. So the salary cap, it works in North American sports, right? So why can't it work in global soccer? And obviously, it can't be only in the Premier League or only in La Liga, because then when you have the Champions League and Europa League and Club World Cup, then one of these leagues is really going to dominate.
When you think about it, no league outside of European leagues is spending this much because they can't make this much money because of their currency, economical situation, sponsorship revenue, broadcast revenue.
Yeah,
Like
media
even
rights.
if Brazil wants like media rights, like they're never going to get. So it's all connected, of course. But I think unless we're going towards this path of, like you just mentioned, the Super League, unless we're going that way, I think people who are smarter than us are probably thinking around this topic and thinking, how can we maintain the parity? And if we're going to change the rules, how do we do it so fairly that it works out and like we have this beautiful competitive environment for every team? I think we can make it happen with some kind of control that benefits everyone, the fan, the ownership, and the player, without going to these extreme, I think, situations.
Yeah, that's the million, billion, or $1 trillion question of how do you make it fair for all without, ticking off the top teams that are the Champions League winners. They're the drivers of all the revenue, the social media popularity, all that stuff, where they want to break off and secede, if you will, and create a super league. And then you also want to make it fair for the little guys, who don't have these investors, who don't have, documentaries about their club, and celebrity owners. And I'm not just singling out Wrexham, but like, they're the prime example. And you can't just have every Hollywood actor come in and buy a team in Europe, and then all of a sudden you just have all of these like super famous owners. So, when I was in Germany, we did 3 Bundesliga matches in 3 days, and we were over there with Alexis and Christian from the Cooligans, who have a great podcast. And we were actually debating about this because it was a bunch of other journalists from the U.S. and the U.K., and we were just like, how do we find parity in global soccer? When does the bubble burst? And everybody was talking about salary cap, salary cap. Alexis made a great point, and I'm 100% giving him credit for this. He said, what about a luxury tax? So in the NFL, NBA, and NHL, they have a salary cap. Hey, you can only spend this amount of money, yada, yada, yada. The MLB, you have that, but you also have a luxury tax where, hey, here's this line, right? It's $241 million now. It'll go up to $244 million in the 2026 season. So here's your line. Here's how much money you can spend. Every dollar you go over that, you get penalized, and you have to pay a tax on it. So if I was some of the biggest spenders in baseball, they go, hey, yeah, well, we'll have a salary, a salary of $500 million, and we'll pay that extra $300 million, whatever it is. We don't care because we have that money. But how is it fair to the Pittsburgh Pirates, who have a salary that's, $50 million or $15 million? I don't even know what the numbers are. But how is it fair? So the league takes this tax, they put it towards things like player benefits, retirement benefits for players, but there's also a discretionary fund that goes towards some of these smaller market teams who don't toe that line and don't go over that line. And by the way, if you go over that line consecutive seasons, those charges increase, right? It's not just a little slap on
Mm-hmm.
the wrist and you cut us a check. It's that check gets bigger and bigger and bigger to really try to deter these teams from going over. Obviously, a lot of these teams are going over, but going back to the salary cap, the NFL has had 10 different franchises win the Super Bowl since the 2010-11 season. NBA, 11 different franchises win the NBA title, and MLB has had 10 different win the World Series. So those are 3 leagues with salary caps in them. That's 10 different franchises in 15 years or whatever. Is that better for the fans? I think so.
What a great way of like kind of creating an equal opportunity employer, situation, especially for the smaller players to have access to a better retirement, more benefits. And I feel like that's how US is different than also in Europe, because in Europe you don't go and get a free college education for being the best player. You just have your start very early. You have 20 years if you're lucky to play. And when you retire, every penny you made is what you made. And you don't necessarily have a retirement fund or a protector of any sorts that actually gives you lifelines in your old age, right? This whole transfer season turned out to be, or turning into, like a reality show of a drama that brings a lot of, I feel like, eyeballs, and like, if you actually can monetize the momentum, I think there will be a lot of money to be made during this time from posts and commercial, value of just reporting part of it, the back and forth. It's like you couldn't write some of these scripts. It's like so compelling. It's so much more exciting than some of the games these guys are going to play, to be honest. Transfer window, deadlines, these are all part of the spectacle that is also like feeding the monster, and like it's great for the business.
Yeah, and we see that here in the States, right? Like the NFL, as much as it is sport, it's entertainment, right? Like 1,000%. They took something as simple as reading people's names and turned it into an event. Literally, okay, with this first pick, Asa Pellet. Oh, now it's a huge event. They get thousands, hundreds of thousands of people to turn up to different cities, Nashville and Pittsburgh, and you name it, all around the country. And they have these events, and they have concerts, and there's celebrities, and former players will come out and announce these picks. And it's literally just reading draft picks. And the same way that people scour the internet and look at what Fabrizio's tweeting, or folks from the Athletic, or whoever else, they're doing that with the NFL. Oh, what's Mel Kiper's big board? Oh, well, this person has so and so ranked higher than so and so. I can't believe Deion Sanders' kid got picked in the 5th round or whatever it was. He was supposed to be a first rounder, second rounder, and it's like they really have turned this. We keep saying the word spectacle, but it's a spectacle. I used to tune in. I started on Thursday nights or whatever in April, I think, or May, and it's like a random Thursday, and you're tuning in to watch people. And you sit there, and they have the clock on the counter. Oh, they have 2 minutes to make their pick. Who are they going to go? Oh, they traded. And it's like you're on the edge of your
As
seat.
if they don't know, as if they
Yeah.
didn't know who they're going to pick. Yeah, like it's all,
They
it's a
know,
move.
but we don't know. And that's what makes it so compelling is we're sitting here as the fan feeling like you're in this boardroom of, should we get this guy? How long should we sign him for? Should we make a trade? Should we do it? Whatever. And everybody's a Monday morning quarterback. Well, we should have drafted a quarterback in the 2nd round, not the 3rd round. And we left this guy on the board and that kind of stuff. And it's the same thing with the transfer window in soccer, where it's, oh my God, we should have gotten a winger. We should have signed another defender, kind of thing. And it is becoming a spectacle. And I would not be surprised, because everything has a price. Speaking of which, if you want to sponsor this podcast, let us know.
Great plug.
You
I
like
love
that?
it.
But everything has a price, right? Deadline day brought to you by Heineken. Like it's gonna happen. And with the Premier League leading the charge in this spectacle, they're the ringmaster of this circus.
Talk about another spectacle that I think people will remember this weekend with, other than the transfer deadline. It would be the Leagues Cup final between Seattle Sounders and Miami, and how it ended, like at a scene that it was crazy, because in American sports, I don't think we see that kind of confrontation, but it's been happening over and over in Inter Miami matches, by the way, and especially perhaps since Suarez arrived. And it was,
Coincidence? I think not. I think not. The guy who's bitten people on the field, I don't think it's any surprise that he's in the middle of confrontations, in MLS.
Yeah, but also think about it. Like, you have this super team that you spend over the salary cap, you spend millions of dollars, and they lost the League's Cup with that 3-0 in Seattle to a team which probably their entire squad doesn't make as much money as Messi in a season. This exactly underlines what we're talking about. Like, you can bring the players, you can spend a lot of money, doesn't really translate into on the field success. Or you can create a team that works perfectly because they all play together for a long time, which really brings results to the team. And I think they have everything to celebrate. And I think perhaps this is a moment to reflect and say, does spending a lot of money always bring happiness? It doesn't. It's a very important lesson to learn. It's funny, the timing of it, right? The timing of this transfer window together with these super players who couldn't really bring the success the team and the fans were expecting from them.
Yeah, I think it's tough to compare though because MLS does have the cap and the designated player rule and all
The
the.
designated player rule, which makes them get paid more than the rest of the squad.
Yeah, I get that, but that's only three players, right? Like if this is an NBA where if you have three of the best players in the world on one team, then you have this super team, right? There's still eight other guys on the field plus the bench and the reserves who contribute throughout the season. But I'm not downplaying the fact that they have the greatest player of all time on their team, as well as all of his best friends from FC Barcelona. That helps. We saw it. He came on. His in the first season, Inter Miami, I think, was on like a 12-match winless streak. And as soon as Messi starts playing, bam, they go and win the Leagues Cup. They won the Supporter Shield the following year, but they haven't won the MLS Cup. So it's like it does only get you so far. And then you mentioned the Leagues Cup, again, a different animal in terms of tournament structure and all of those things. And we're not downplaying the success of Seattle by any means, because if I'm not mistaken, I think having won the League Cup, they've now won every potential domestic club
Yeah.
trophy in North America, which like an amazing feat. But they don't have the superstars like Inter Miami does, and they don't
They
have the
didn't
social
spend
media
billions of
followers.
dollars.
Exactly, but again, I think it's a bit of an outlier um, with the roster rules in MLS and the DP and all of those things. But I do think the one thing we want to mention we're not just talking about hey who spent more money and who won and who lost too. The other thing to come out of the Leagues Cup final was at the end when Miami did lose, they were I don't want to say sore losers, not the happiest losers, where there was a bit of a confrontation with Luis Suarez and I think it was the one of the trainers from Seattle where they were getting at each other, and everyone's saying allegedly. I think if you have two eyeballs, you can clearly see that Suarez he didn't bite the guy, but he spit at him,
He spit on it.
and I think that is absolutely disgusting.
And I'm going to single out Suarez here, and you see him on camera. It looks like he spits. What are you doing?
It really gave the vibe of, oh my God, I'm actually watching the end of like a final in anywhere but United States where losing turns into violence over and over again, which is not a behavior we condone or appreciate as fans. But seeing it from the players, instead the fans were not fighting it, they were players that were fighting, which is being a sore loser. Not a good look.
I think another point too out of all of this is I wouldn't want to be Don Garber right now. You've built up this super team in Inter Miami. Messi's elected to the All-Star game every season he's been in the league. There was the issue where he didn't show up in Austin earlier this summer. And if you don't show up, if you're elected, him and Jordi Alba were selected, they were suspended. And Don was like, oh, crap, I don't want to have to do this. Like, he's obviously, Messi is their, golden goose or whatever the expression is. And they were like, well, crap, we have to suspend him because the rule's a rule. So now here you are with the same team, obviously a different player causing issues, but Luis Suarez he's one of the greatest goal scorers and players of all time. Now you have another guy who's ruffling some feathers and doing some stuff where you're like, crap, we brought him in to draw a lot of eyeballs, and now he's kind of doing the opposite of that because he's getting a lot of people to potentially turn away and be like, what is this, amateur hour? So if you're the commissioner, right, you've invested a lot of money, and not him personally, obviously, but in terms of Inter Miami and the league and bringing Messi and obviously all of his friends, this is not the best look, for MLS or for Miami, and it's because of the actions of one player.
This is not, the ideal situation at all from wherever you're looking at. That your biggest stars won't be playing the games that your league prioritizes right now going forward, leading off to playoffs. So, yeah, not a good look. We don't like it. It can go down as one of the probably not so beautiful moments of the beautiful game. Shout out to my brother, my number one listener, who tunes every week to listen to. His older sister does this and really likes our banter, Michael. So we're doing great.
He tunes in for both of us, not just you, right?
He does. Exactly. He does it for both of us.
Finance of Football comes to you from the Frequency Machine Podcast Network. Hit us up on social on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube for more football business and our enlightened opinions. This episode was produced by co-hosts Asif Pellet and Michael Leray. It was edited by Ryan Hammond. Mixing and mastering by Julian Kwasniewski. Our theme music is by Hatamet Tsunami. Our show is executive produced by Stacy Book and Avi Glajansky for Frequency Machine. Find more about Finance of Football at frequencymachine.com. Follow us on YouTube at Finance of Football and listen anywhere you get podcasts. Please like and subscribe. Help us reach more people. We love you for it.